Welcome back to Wacky FM, folks, and we have a very special guest today. Harley, wheel him in. It's the one, the only, the clown prince of crime, the joke, Alex Johnson. Welcome, Boris. You know, ladies and clowns, we have here a person that no country should be without.
Thank you, Joker. It's great to be here.
It is a dimension as strange as space.
You have to get population under control.
As stupid as believable.
The government of this country has to start talking seriously about immigration. Because if you look at the rise in Britain's population now, you will see that, as it were, there is a really serious differential in the fertility of the immigrant population to the fertility of what you might call the indigenous population.
It is the middle ground between light and darkness. And it lies between the pit of human fears and the summit of their knowledge.
That
these
requires
allegations
a
of lying
degree of
before.
literacy, which I think the great British public doesn't necessarily have.
This is a dimension not only of reality, but of imagination. It is an area we call the gaslighting.
Welcome, Boris. You know, ladies and clowns, we have here a person that no country should be without. Boris, I hear you're planning to give your dad a knighthood?
That's correct, Joker.
I see. So, you're wanting to give your dad a knighthood, and I suppose you don't see the problem with that?
Well, my father is an insightful character, a former politician full of beans, and has been excellent in his love for Britain.
This is the same father who skipped COVID flight restrictions by flying to Bulgaria to get into Greece, correct?
Look, I'm sure you've no bias to knights, no matter how dark they are. It's all perfectly legal. Otherwise, how else did he get in?
Touché, but this is the same father who suggested lowering their population of the UK to 15 million, and that there's a serious differential in fertility rates between foreigners and Brits.
Well,
How many children is it that you've sired as well as your father?
look, Joker, my private life is my own. Thus the word private.
Aren't you American, though? Wouldn't that make you a foreigner? Didn't you brag that you couldn't be a racist because of your Turkish heritage?
Well,
Don't worry, Beanbag Boris. I'm just joking around. Like your father does when he's not groping women or suggesting the population is too stupid to be able to read or spell Pinocchio. Pinocchio is a long word after all. Can you spell it? P.
Bzzz.
What's that?
Oh, that's Harley, giving you a warning for every time you mess up with one of my jokes. Try again, Boris. Pinocchio is a long word after all. Can you spell it? P.
Bzzz.
Strike two, Beanbag. Try again and really listen. Pinocchio is a long word after all. Can you spell it?
IT?
Yes, that Oximus Maximus education did not go completely to waste. You know, you and I are a lot alike, and in truth, I don't wish you harm. You have done more of a joke than I could ever have hoped for.
You promised a country riches and gave them rags, but they love you for it.
I never did such a thing.
But you did. Don't lie about it. Don't be just another one of them.
I did get the British public what they wanted.
Shh, don't talk to me like one of those other politicians. Nor the crowd. I know the truth. There's no going back. You've changed things. Forever.
Then what do you want? Money, women, food. Are you planning on wreaking havoc here like you do in Gotham?
I don't want any of that. Why would I want to do that? You have done more destruction, more chaos than I could have dreamed of. You have wrecked cities, divided families, split entire continents, allowed more corruption than I could complete in 10 lifetimes. All I've ever wanted to do is show the truth, and you have unleashed the truth. When the chips are down, send in the clown. I wanted to meet the clown that outmatched the...
Joker.
They say never meet your heroes, but you are something special.
And just to clarify that the Joker isn't completely crazy, just have a listen to Boris's father talk about all the things that you saw at the beginning and all the questions the Joker asked.
You have to get population under control as well, because if you look at it in sheer economic terms, how can you sustain increases in per capita income at a time when you have rising population without rising economic growth? Whereas if you have a declining population, which is what I would aim for, then of course even a stable economic growth situation will give you increases in per capita income.
Pinocchio. I know that you responded to these allegations of lying before.
Literacy, which I think the great British public doesn't necessarily have. In Britain, I put it at 10 or 15 million. I think that'd be absolutely fine. I mean, that would do us really splendidly. At a limit, 2025, I think it's complete nonsense that we are now confronted with an island, would you believe it, of 70 million people. I wrote a paper, I think it's the only paper the Conservative Party has ever published, and it was published as an old Queen Street paper in June 1972, oddly enough. And it was called Britain Needs a Population Policy. And
you could still argue that today, I mean, right now?
I certainly could. But what has happened, of course, is that we have all been, as it were, shunted off course by what you might call the rise of political correctness, because you can't talk about this now without being saying you're anti-feminist, because you're telling women what to do with their bodies, or you're racist, because you're saying it's the browns and the blacks and the yellow races who mustn't have, or you're a left-winger, because you're trying to get at the capitalist society. So it's a very, very difficult one now, and I would say that at the very least, the governments of the world have to start talking, the government of this country has to start talking seriously about immigration. Because if you look at the rise in Britain's population now, you will see that, as it were, there is a really serious differential in the fertility of the immigrant population to the fertility of what you might call the indigenous population. So anyway, but this is very political stuff, not one for Guardian readers.
I can remember a really prominent man smacking me on the backside about as hard as he could and going, "Oh, Romsey, you've got a lovely seat."
Oh, gross.
I'd have punched him in the face. That's my problem, is that I didn't punch Stanley Johnson in the face.
Stanley Johnson.
Stanley Johnson did that to me ahead of the 05 election, so it was Blackpool, I don't know what years, for 2003.
What did you do?
I didn't do anything. And that I feel ashamed by that.
No, you shouldn't feel ashamed by that, because when I say I'd have punched him in the face, that's because I am, now you probably would. Now you would probably say something.
Party conference 18 years ago, it sticks in the mind of Women and Equality Select Committee Chair Caroline Noakes. For Stanley Johnson, seemingly hard to remember.
Caroline Noakes of touching her inappropriately in 2003 and you said, "Oh, Romsey, what a lovely seat." Do you have a response to this, Mr. Johnson? What I'm showing you is Caroline Noakes accusing you of touching her inappropriately in 2003. Do you have a response?
I have no recollection of Caroline Noakes at all.
You have no...
And here's what Boris Johnson, his son, had to say about it.
Your father has been accused by a Conservative MP and a journalist of groping them at Conservative Party conference. Should there be an investigation by the party, given you do owe a duty of care, at least to a Conservative MP? And have you spoken to him about it?
But I'm obviously not going to comment about...
Have you asked him whether it's true?
I'm obviously not going to comment about individual cases.
Incidents like that are memorable to women who've experienced them. And it, it makes you wonder how often things like that happen to every other woman. And really that's my message, is that we should all be braver about speaking out. We should speak out at the time and report it, so that you can't suffer the criticism of, oh, well, she's waited 20 years. What's in it for her now? Well, nothing. There is nothing in it for me now. It has done nothing other than make my life a little bit worse.
Did you think twice, because this is effectively your boss's dad?
Yes, of course I thought about that. I also thought about how colleagues would react to it. I thought about how my own family would react. And I mean, I have to say, my daughter has been absolutely brilliant. And in many respects, I did it for women of her age.
Is there anything you want from Stanley Johnson now?
No, I think an apology would be nice, but I'm not holding my breath.
So another piece of government that's totally corrupt. And that is who Boris wants to give a knighthood to.
This government will have integrity, professionalism, and accountability at every level.
Well, thank you very much for listening, everyone. If you'd like to support the channel, just click the subscribe button. And thank you to all of my Patreon and YouTube supporters. You keep this channel growing and going. Thanks for listening, and bye for now.
Aha.